Thanks for joining us. Today, as you follow along, if you do have any questions, you can ask them in the GoToMeeting panel. That's up on your screen now. In the question section there, you can put in your questions and we'll be sure to answer them. You can also, if you want to ask questions on Twitter, if you'd prefer, you can use the hashtag #DoubleYourLeads or at AutopilotUS to tweet directly at us here at Autopilot. My name is Michael Sharkey. I'm the CEO and co-founder here, and I'll be hosting today along with Guy Marion, our CMO. Welcome, Guy.
Good morning. Thanks, Mike.
We're back at it again.
We are.
The troublemakers on our webinar. So for those of you who are new to our webinars, we're a company called Autopilot. You may have already used the application. We say Autopilot is easy and visual marketing automation software that helps you create customer journeys with email, SMS, and direct mail. And there's some of our customers up there. And we'll be showing you today how to use Autopilot to double your leads using marketing automation. So the agenda today is we'll give you a little bit of background about marketing automation. Guy has some really amazing data points and concepts to share with you this morning. We'll talk about getting started with marketing automation, and then I'll give you a demo about how to put this into practice in Autopilot, growing with lead nurturing, of course. And then we'll try and answer your questions throughout the webinar, also during the demo, and then in the takeaway section, we'll try and do a bit of a Q&A if we have time as well. So please do, if you want to reach out and ask any questions, please feel free to do it. It certainly makes the webinar more fun and entertaining, and the questions can be as far-fetched as you like. So I'll hand over to Guy now, who will give us a background and kick things off.
Great. Thanks, Mike. Good morning, everybody, and excited to be doing this webinar today. It's actually based on a meeting that Mike and I had in New York a couple of months ago, where we met with a number of customers and interested people at one of the WeWork startup incubators over there, which we really enjoyed and had a great interactive session. So we'll go through a little bit today, starting off with why are companies interested in using marketing automation, and some interesting data points. So like Mike described, we did a research project back in January and commissioned a survey with SurveyMonkey, actually, and found that amongst 327 companies across the US, across all major geographies, about 2/3 of them were classified as SMBs and about 1/3 were larger than that. Only about 4% of companies use marketing automation today in some way or another. And what we also saw is that this is a snapshot of an infographic we created from that project. We saw that companies who are using marketing automation are perceived to be more effective by their peers. So the response to the question was, how likely are you to be outperforming other companies in your industry? And those who were effective with marketing automation were seen to be doing a good job. We also learned by asking actually raw questions of how many leads you generate and how large is your lead database, and then comparing that across different types of questions, we're able to learn that companies that use marketing automation to stay in touch more regularly with their customers are generating about 2 times as many leads as those who don't. So really interesting insights there that shows us that companies that are able to put in place robust follow-up and long-term nurturing programs are in fact able to significantly outperform those who are more opportunistic in the way in which they follow up with customers. So a key point there that we learned as well is 65% of companies feel that their marketing departments could be doing a better job of staying in touch. For all of us who are in marketing, this is a pretty telling statistic that, although we do obviously work hard and implement many different approaches to build a good relationship with our customers, there's generally a strong feeling that we can always be doing better. As also described, we also learned that sending customer communications every 2 to 4 weeks generates double the leads as those who don't. So that little graphic there summarizes the number of leads of companies based on how frequently they're actually interacting with their customers. So you can see there on average about 2,024 monthly leads for those who are in touch every 2 to 4 weeks versus about 1,000 less frequently, and actually more frequently. So to cut to the chase around lead nurturing, the way we view the world is we think about, and the way that our customers, regardless of what industry or use case are in, most of us are really focused on how to raise awareness for your business, how to build a long-term successful company and product and brand, and then how to drive leads, which in turn into customers and growth opportunities and long-term success. So the key that we're going to talk to you today is how all of us can actually tap into a hidden sink of opportunity that we all have, which is a rich and robust contact base of all the people we've ever interacted with, whether it's through people who attend events of yours or people who visit your website and contact us through forms or many different approaches. And we're going to talk about how you can implement a nurture machine, to keep in touch in a way that's actually insightful, educational, and valuable. And in doing so, drive as much as what we shoot as a good benchmark is 10% of your leads, regardless of what time frame you look at them in, should really be coming back from the most warm leads that you have, which are people who've previously come to you. And we know from industry research that about 25% of companies who initially inquire about a service or a product are interested in buying, but not right then. And so 75% aren't interested in engaging at that point, but later on will re-engage. So the question is, how do you keep that 75% warm so they come back again? And that's what we're talking about today.
I think the other interesting point there is just how much value, they always say in sales that the people to kind of make new sales from your existing customers or increase revenue from your existing customers. And I think if you think about your leads in that way as well, these are people, like you said, that have previously interacted with you and are clearly interested to some extent in your product or service or your e-commerce site. And so this reactivation opportunity is so huge. And we see this every day with customers that we work with who have an existing database, have a really good sales process, and are doing extremely well, but they're really letting leads or buyers slip through the cracks. And so this nurture machine that we will show you, and this ability to implement lead nurturing through marketing automation, is certainly a powerful thing if done right. And as you saw, it can have a 2x increase in those leads. And this isn't sort of fabricated statistics. We see this time and time again with customers that implement. They're like, wow, there's so much more opportunity in my database, or the people I've existed with, or people who have previously purchased than I once thought. So it's really cool stuff.
Absolutely. All right, so let's go ahead and talk about getting started. So first of all, what are some best practices and frameworks by which we get started with marketing automation? We basically break this down into sort of 5 easy steps. One is centralize and organize your contact database. We actually have a lot of content on the Autopilot blog. We're about to release a new e-learning platform that actually offers a ton of best practices about how to organize contacts. But many of our customers have never used either CRM or marketing automation, and have contact lists that are stored in spreadsheets, stored in niche CRM, stored in home-built systems, stored in email inboxes. And so the first step is really exporting your contacts out of your each of your different systems, adding them to a list and importing them into a marketing automation system, or actually syncing them from a CRM like Salesforce into a marketing automation system. Secondly, once you've had a chance to do that, then it's about developing a profile of your visitors and customers. So, anybody who's on this call today, I'm sure, has a very good grasp of who their customers actually are. One of the key tricks is actually building out a profile around what they're looking for, where they hang out, what type of content they are most interested in through what their pains and core challenges are, and then being able to leverage that content in a way that you can deliver messages to them that solve problems, offer insights, and help make decisions along the way as they're trying to understand and navigate a new system or a new ecosystem. So from there, we can capture and grow leads, and that really comes from the combination of having lead capture mechanisms on your website, on your blog, through lists that you have and import, so that you can actually implement a range of different approaches to be able to grow leads over time. For example, if you go to the Autopilot HQ website and you scroll to our footer bar, you'll see a little box, a single form that says buckle up, and you can add your email in there to stay in touch with us and get insights and updates. And again, our internal objective is not to sell or market directly to the customer, but to provide best practices and insights that will help you actually be more effective at this. Fourth is get a quick win. So I'll show you in a minute, but prior to setting up a lead nurturing program that allows you to maintain longer term relationships, there's some quick wins you can offer when you first import a contact database and engage your customers. A couple of those that we commonly see would be, we have what we call 9-word email, which is a quick direct in email that asks you, are you still interested in researching or purchasing a certain service? And these can get very, very high response rates and quickly identify any hot opportunities or customers that you may not have engaged for a long time, but still have you top of mind. Another very effective quick win is sending a newsletter that maybe you haven't been doing in the past or not to the same extent. And being able to do a newsletter and provide information that, again, solves common problems within your audience base and maintains a good face for you will be a quick way in which you can get some responses back. And a third quick win might be a customer survey, and we'll go into that in a different session, but something like the Net Promoter Score, where you can quickly gauge your customers on what their impression of your product, company, or service is. It's a great way to get raw, honest feedback, help you learn a lot quickly without having to spend a lot of time implementing new systems. And then fifth, once we go and build out a lead nurturing program, you need a framework to be able to track and measure your results and improve over time. Since we consider this, and Sander on our team, who does a lot of the nurturing day to day, he always says that lead nurturing is not a destination; it's a journey in and of itself. So this is an interesting view of how we internally and how customers can connect the customer journey. So to be really effective with lead nurturing and marketing automation, the name of the game is personalizing your content based on how people have engaged and interacted with your service in the past. And again, we'll show this in a few minutes, but let's take a look at a sample story of a person who's interested in looking at customer service software. In this case, Zendesk. I'm picking on this company just because I know it quite well. I used to work there, and we want to basically have a way in which we can see a user is searching for customer service software. They find an ad and they click on an ad that takes them to a website. They then visit a certain pricing page, then bounce off to a blog post, are particularly impressed by 3 ways of producing great customer service at scale, and decide it's time to sign up for learning more about information that Zendesk puts out about delivering a great customer service experience. They then receive emails through a nurturing program. They click that email, which in turn leads them to go and try a project and sign up for a product, sign up for trial. But at the end of it, since they were really only ever researching, they weren't really interested in making a purchase right now, but might be next year. They decide not to buy, but they appreciated that experience. At this point in time, you want to go ahead and pass that person rather than losing them off into the ether into an ongoing system that will keep them warm, keep your company top of mind, and bring them back when they are ready to actually kick off a project. So all of this can be achieved actually through marketing automation, and specifically through Autopilot. We have an activity script that can be added into each of the different online properties that you can see here, and all of that pulls in their events, their activities. You can view it, and you can actually use it to trigger and personalize your marketing automation, all as simply as adding a tracking script like Google Analytics. So let's go straight into growing your business with lead nurturing itself. Maybe we should take a second here. Any questions so far from the audience, or do we want to run a quick poll?
Yeah, let's go with our first poll, and we'll bring that up right now. So we do want to ask you, what is your level of experience with marketing automation? And I'll throw that up on the screen right now for you to see. And so the answers, the question is, what is your level of experience with marketing automation? You can select from one of the following: never used it, less than 1 year, 1 to 3 years, over 3 years.
Wow, so we're seeing a pretty good skew of fairly sophisticated users here today.
Yeah, so I'll give it a few more seconds and I'll share the results. It seems to be that most of you less than a year, over half of you at least less than 1 year, 38% 1 to 3 years, and then some more advanced people in the crowd today, Guy, 13% over 3 years, which is really good. So I'll close that up now and quickly share those results so everyone can see.
Excellent. So about a half, nobody here has never used marketing automation before. So we'll move along because we don't want to preach to the choir. Less than 1 year is about half, and over 1 year is about half. So that's good. That's good insight. You know, while we're at it, why don't we do one more poll question since we have a second, and and do that as well. And then we'll move straight along here.
So the second question we have for you today was, do you feel like your company is doing a good job nurturing leads and following up with customers? So you can select one of the following: yes, yes, but could be doing a better job, or not yet.
Interesting.
So this is a pretty common, in fact, when we did that survey with SurveyMonkey earlier in the year, one of the things that we saw, which I think surprised us a lot, was that statistic earlier, what's the exact percentage about marketers that feel like they
65%.
65%. So it's quite high. It's a significant amount of people, and so our audience, everyone is saying not yet, which is amazing.
And Mike, how does that align with what you've been, the conversations you've been on recently with customers coming to us for the first time? Like, how many people are looking to, have a more robust lead nurturing program to keep in touch with people who maybe haven't purchased, or keep them warm over a long time frame versus other needs that we're seeing?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think that, when we were even thinking about starting Autopilot as a company, one of the things that we really recognized was that lead nurturing in and of itself was pretty hard to do, or at least start out doing. And so generally, we see time and time again, people have a pretty strong flow of leads, or maybe not as strong, but they're only handling people when they initially inquire. So they they fill in a form, or they click on a button, or they do some interaction, but there's really this path they can fall into where they get left behind, or there's nothing that continuously is talking to them or nurturing them and trying to turn them into a customer. And so it's amazing how, with just a few simple communications and steps to an existing audience, I mean, you've seen this as well, people are so surprised at the impact it can have. And even I'm surprised. I mean, I think something like 12 to 15% of the trials we get each month at Autopilot have been resurfaced from just some really great lead nurturing through what we call a life cycle journey. And we have these journeys available, we'll show you in a little bit, in our guidebook. And so you can just take these journeys and implement them and add some content, and they're ready to go, which is a great way of getting started.
Cool. Good. All right, and you're absolutely right. So we're going to start off with a quick, I want to get into a product demo here shortly. So we're going to a product description of how to build out a nurture machine, or the lifecycle nurture. But just real quick, it's always nice to have a framework to work within and understand what the objective is. So Autopilot really thinks about the world around how to attract customers, so turn your strangers and contacts into leads, how to acquire customers, which means converting those leads into sales. And then third is how to grow customers. So grow revenue and satisfy promoting customers, which in turn will help your customers grow over the long term and ensure long-term success for your customers and long-term financial success for your company. And then nurturing kicks in, where along this path, we see many different subsets of journeys where companies that maybe are attracted but don't initially acquire, we want to re-nurture those, and keep them warm so that you reactivate them. Like you said, Mike, in our case, we do 12 to 15%. We reactivate downstream. So if we go to the number one here on the attract, the key goal is to capture, engage, and track new leads, reactivate old leads, and increase brand awareness by nurturing your contacts, and grow your marketing base while, if you're using a CRM, staying in sync with a CRM. And so that's really what we're going to focus on today, is that attract, the re-nurture, into acquire. Obviously, different users, different needs. So again, when we were in New York a couple months ago, we were speaking to an audience that had a legal use case, so large legal companies, an e-commerce use case, some software use cases, and each of these have different unique needs within these vertical environments. So an inside sales driven sort of a B2B software company, for example, typically looks at the world in terms of new leads, marketing qualified leads, sales qualified leads, and then opportunities, which drives into win. So obviously that requires a certain type of design and framework to be able to convert customers from being raw leads into becoming more qualified, pass through to a sales team. And there's a series of triggers and conditions that we use to be able to make that something that companies can achieve easily. On the flip side, freemium companies, where you can sign up for online, get a free account, like a Twitter account, for example, use it for a period of time and then choose to upgrade later, have a more simple and direct framework where you can use it at some point and trigger it upwards. And so, common customer journeys in that use case might be, how do you engage customers, make them successful during that free use period, and identify sort of interesting moments when it's time to go from being a non-paid to a paid user. E-commerce is really a world of volume and numbers, obviously, driving visitors to a site, into a shopping cart, and then capturing those that abandon. And by remarketing and retargeting and messaging them appropriately at the right period of time, can drive tremendous results in bringing people back in and completing that purchase. And then companies like consulting companies, academic groups, services organizations are really more focused on developing and growing their contact database, as well as maximizing their typically high value contact base that have grown typically over months or years. And in turn, it's about creating a good brand presence, establishing thought leadership within their domain, and resurfacing potentially interested new clients for new engagements at the right time in the right place that in turn could lead to a new engagement. So these are all different types of ways in which nurturing and marketing automation can be implemented. And what we're going to talk a little bit about today is actually a more common use case that speaks to more or less that most of these, which is, how do you re-engage contacts that have come to your site? It's the 75% that are interested in your service or interested in your company but aren't ready to buy today. So we really think about this in terms of building out a longer term lifecycle nurturing framework. To begin with, the content is an important aspect of this. We think about the content funnel, and we map the level of awareness of that content to the buying stage of the customer. So for early stage buyers who may not have any interest in actually making purchases, but just are trying to learn a new space right now. I want to purchase marketing automation. I want to purchase CRM. I want to maybe engage a web design firm. They're more interested in thought leadership, op-eds, industry trends. What are some of the issues I should be aware of? What works and what doesn't work? And providing that educational content that moves people through into when I start to become convinced it's time to set up a project, evaluate some services. And at that point, I'm probably going to start to engage content differently. So, we ourselves are creating content that at top of funnel is showing like key steps for blogging, top KPIs, and lead nurturing strategies. If someone clicks into those, then we escalate them into a middle of funnel or mid-stage buying cycle, which is more about starting to provide customer proof points, whether those be from consumer review sites or from case studies or third-party insights, still trying to keep as much non-branded organic content as possible, since again, the goal is to maintain a good company awareness as well as really help those customers as they go through that buying journey. And again, as they continue to click through or engage further there, then that's pretty good insight that they're interested in your space, they want to see proof points, they're heavily reading your reviews, they're engaged in that content. Then at that point, you want to escalate them into what we call late stage buying cycles, or the action flows, which means that it's the bottom of this content funnel. They're ready to engage, and we send them these call to action type emails, which are typically sign up for a trial, contact sales, request a demo, those sorts of call to actions. Here are some example content, and a key point I'd want to make for people on the webinar today, and this is something that comes up a lot with our customers and on early calls, is it's quite intimidating to think about needing to set up and all the content that you might need to create when creating lead nurturing. The vast majority of you will already have a lot of content, whether you've thought about it or not, as being available. Whether it's web pages on your site, or PDF articles you've compiled and sent to people individually, or a blog where you're obviously posting blog comments, or third-party sites as well where you have information. And some of what we've learned over time is that your emails don't need to be big, heavy digests. They can just be quick summaries that link off to interesting content that obviously you've compiled because you've had a need for it, or your customers have a need for it. So we're constantly focusing on creating emails. We create white papers, infographics, and so on. But I was speaking with a customer not that long ago who had a page on his website where he had 30 PDFs that he'd been sending to customers and simply uploading, but they were really interesting and insightful. And he was able to generate 30 lead nurturing emails with a 4-line cover that linked to that with virtually no extra effort. So it can be really quite easy to get into this. And if we keep going through, we're now going to lay out a little bit of that, and then we're going to jump right into a demo on this. We're going to lay out how that early stage, mid stage, and late stage buying journey would actually look. So this is just a summary of what I showed you a few minutes ago with actual screenshots of the emails that we send our customers. At early stage, again, it's thought leadership, top of funnel, non-branded, not focused on our own particular vendor services, but rather focused on content that we know customers are searching for on the web and have great readership, sharing, and engagement. Infographics, best of breed landing page builder reviews, and so on. Somebody clicks on any of those, then we move them into a mid-stage accelerator, which now is relevant to the first email they click on. So if they're interested in lead nurturing strategies, we kick them into an essential lead nurturing toolkit that reviews all the lead nurturing tools out there that you may need when you put together a great program. And again, if you click on that, then we accelerate you into an action flow, which you can see down below says, delight your customers and convert more leads, sign up for a free trial. If they don't click, we push them back up to the higher level and move them to a less action-oriented set of content, again, designed to add value, educate, and assist during this buying life cycle and this buying journey. And so let's go ahead and skip from here, and I think we're going to pass it over to you, Mike, and I will stop talking.
Yeah, I think one other point on that is, while I'm just getting this ready, the one thing that a lot of people often talk about is hopefully everyone likes my wallpaper. I'm really into space at the moment. But the one thing to really mention there, I think, is that for those of you even just starting out who have no idea with what content to supply, one of the really cool things you can do, I found myself in the early days, you get a lot of questions about the product or about the market or about how to do lead nurturing in our case. And so I'd be writing these like intricate email detailed replies for either support tickets or emails. And they're also an incredible untapped source of information that you could use, content you can repurpose to kick off just an initial journey. And that's what we want to show you today with this fictitious website that I've created before this webinar called Wine Time, which I thought everyone would really like. So it's called Wine Time, and this is just imagine a subscription service to wine to put it into context. But hopefully this example will apply to a lot of you out there. So it says subscribe to Wine Time and explore wine, and you can subscribe. And obviously at this point we don't want to take money from them, so we're offering them this great content track or lead nurturing program, which will start to educate them about wine. And all I know about wine today is that I really like it. I don't know a lot about it, so this will really help me.
Is it Wine Time now?
I wish it was Wine Time. Although last weekend I drank a little bit too much, so we won't be drinking alcohol for a little while here. So this is Autopilot. If you haven't already been in it, I'm going to show you how to kind of get this working today. So we're in the dashboard right now, which gives us a snapshot of our funnel right through from visitors to opportunities to close one and even revenue out the end there. An activity feed. This shows you both anonymous and known visitors as they're navigating across your website. So you can see the Wine Time website is actually called moveup.space. So if you do want to play along there from your own computer as we go through this demo, you'll be able to interact as well. So we have our journeys, our contacts, our reporting. And earlier on, Guy talked about getting organized for lead nurturing. And the first thing you really want to do is get your contacts into Autopilot. And there's some great ways of doing that. There's great ways to connect. I won't go into that in too much detail. Suffice to say that if you do sign up, we have these really great tutorials that will show you how to do that. So getting your contacts into Autopilot and organized or synced with another solution like a CRM is the best place to start. But let's go ahead and create our journey. One thing I did want to do a little bit differently today from what I normally do is show you how to create a journey from a guide. And so when you hit this new journey button, you get two options: start from scratch or start from a guide. And so if I go into the guidebook here, we have some great templates or great guides that will allow you to create what we call journeys. So in here, if I go into lifecycle nurturing, and this is really where we store a lot of our lead nurturing campaigns, we call them lifecycle nurturing journeys. So up here, I've got nurture leads and paying customers, nurture your contacts with 4 emails. So this is the one I'm going to work with today, nurture your contacts with 4 emails. And to use this guide, I can just go ahead and click use guide. Now, I have jumped a step ahead here and I've already clicked that step. So I'm just going to go in and load it up. to show you sort of where I left off. Now, when you open up a guide, what's different here is we actually give you some guide notes, almost like wine tasting notes, and then a guide method, which is how to configure and set up this guide. So if you follow these steps, I'll actually walk you through and step you through the entire setup process. I am going to switch back here to our shapes view so I can see our triggers, actions, and conditions. And our journey is built out of these triggers, actions, and conditions. So you can see here, by default in this example journey, I have a trigger which says nurture start. So anyone that I added to this contact list or from an import or from a connected solution like a CRM would be added to this list trigger and they would begin the journey.
Mike, I just want to make one point, which is I like that you just gave a quick overview of the guide. It's obviously near and dear to our heart. One thing I would say is it's worth browsing through there. Those guides currently are all curated by our team, and they do actually represent many years of testing and trying different approaches, and we put some time into documenting that. And it's a pretty exciting part of what Autopilot is. I've never seen a situation where you can go in and launch all sorts of different types of marketing automation or lead nurturing journeys, and right off the bat be doing the same things that frankly some of the most sophisticated B2B SaaS companies in the world are doing, for example.
Good pitch. Very good pitch. Clearly, this webinar is not about selling you. But no, Guy's definitely right. I mean, the experience and knowledge that's gone into these guys, we've been able to recruit some amazing people into the company that have had a lot of experience doing this. And some of these guides are really cheat sheets of how to do this. And you should try and utilize them as much as possible. On average, we see people that sign up in trials are using about 4 of these guides. So it's pretty impressive to think that they're getting used so heavily. And they're getting used so heavily because they work. So let's just take a quick overview of this guide. So we start off, and this guide actually ships with surprise, surprise, some wine examples. So it starts off with the 3 Pinots example, the intoxicating flavors, read more, and these are designed to link up to a blog. And then need more guidance, connect with one of our experts, and the experts could then offer some sort of upsell opportunity. Now, the whole idea here is when they subscribe to Wine Time, we take them through and we continue to nurture them over a period. Here you see 10-day gap. So the email gets sent. We have a delay timer. We check if they haven't clicked on the email or interacted with the email. And if they haven't, we send them our next lead nurturing email, which is grow your wine knowledge. So this continues at that higher level track. And so on and so forth. And this goes on and on and on over a 30-day period until it enters a list called Nurture Done. And the reason we add that list at the end is just so once the nurture is over, we can then take them into another journey, or we understand how they got there, which is always helpful to know. And then, of course, we have this accelerator track at the bottom here, which is whenever they show any interest in any of these emails by clicking through to them, we send them after a day. So a day later, a touch or a personalized communication from presumably, in Wine Time's case, one of our telesales or like inside salespeople that says, I noticed you were learning more about a certain product and this is great. If you'd like to join, in this case, a demo wouldn't be appropriate, but if you'd like to, join a seminar on wine, or if you'd like to subscribe and get a free sample of our wine, click here. So that's really where the sales pitch comes in. And of course, the examples Guy showed you earlier are a lot more sophisticated with this, but you don't have to start out very sophisticated. If you have a database of existing contacts, you can easily add them to a really simple nurture flow like this and begin to nurture them and accelerate them and expose some leads or some qualified people ready to buy. So I am going to go ahead and modify this journey a little bit just to show you how easy that is to do. So I'm going to remove the trigger because I don't want to trigger from a list. I want to trigger from the moment that someone clicks subscribe here to my Wine Time website. So this is the Wine Time website here, and this is the subscription form. So I'm going to go ahead and use a different trigger, which is called the form submitted trigger. And I'm going to connect that in at the start instead. And that'll allow it so whenever anyone signs up on the Wine Time website, it'll add the contact into the Autopilot database automatically from that form, and then it'll start this journey. The interesting thing to note about this is you don't have to make modifications to existing forms. So if you have forms on your website that are already call to actions like this or subscribe forms, you can use those forms to just immediately kick this off. You don't have to modify them in any way. You just add some simple tracking code to your website. So I'm going to copy the URL of this form and go ahead and set this up. So I'll say track new form, and we'll call this like wine time subscribe. And I just paste the URL into the form submitted trigger here, and Autopilot will go off and scan that form and understand everything there is to know about the form. And it'll display, if there's multiple forms on the page, it'll display those. But in this case, there's just one, and it's found 5 fields. And of course, that's our form. So we click continue, and then we can just map the form into the database. So it automatically has found first name, last name, email, phone. The last question in our form is, what do you love most about wine? So we can go ahead. Obviously, there's no corresponding field in our database for this. So we can add a custom field here, and we can say what they love about wine might be our custom field here. So we can map the form data into that field. And then we just click add to shape, and that's all it is to configure up the form submitted trigger. Another example here is to go in and edit the email. You can add what we call personalization into any of the communications as well, which is really helpful. So we have this, what we call a personalization variable here, and you can go ahead and select any of the fields, including how they might have responded to a form or any of the custom fields that you saw me add as well. So we could go ahead and add first name to this email. So it would say, if it was me, Michael, the intoxicating flavors of Pinot Noir are here, or something like that, just to make it more personal. And of course, you can also add these into the body of the email as well. So you could say, Michael, 3 Pinots that people love, and this is kind of how you would build out the email. The other thing you can do is, if you want to use our existing templates, of course, is modify the email here. So if I go back to my desktop and I grab our Wine Time logo, I can just come in and quickly add in an image. So it's really easy to set up and add my Wine Time image into the email as well. So I've personalized it now as well, and it kind of matches my brand, and it's really easy to go about sort of adding and configuring this, and then my email's ready to go. And so you can use some of these existing templates to build out and configure your own custom emails as well. Now, one other aspect that's really cool about Autopilot is it has a lot of multi-channel features. So you don't need to necessarily send emails as part of a lead nurturing program. You can also mail postcards. So we could mail postcard offers about subscribing to our wine service, and we could design beautiful postcards, and sending one of these is just as simple as sending email. And we could also SMS and thank them for subscribing. So I'm going to go and do that as an example here. So I can just as easily as send an email, I can say, first name. So in my case, it'd be Michael. Thanks for subscribing to Wine Time. We hope you love our wine as much as we love it, or something like that. So we can also send an SMS there as a different touch. Now, we also might add a notification, and this notification email could be for your own internal team. And the notification is just going to simply say, hey, we got a new subscriber, this is really good, and it just keeps you really informed about the business as a whole. One of the things we did actually add recently, which is a little bit more high tech, but an interesting one if you are using it. Slack is this sort of communication system. It's basically chat for your workplace, and it allows you to send messages to your team and have different channels. So at Autopilot, we have basically a sign up or user behavior channel, and we send notifications to that chat channel so everyone on our team can see that we got a new sign up as well. So that's just another really cool way of communicating internally about the lead nurturing program that's happening as well as externally. The final thing I'll show you is, if you do use a CRM like Salesforce, you can do some CRM assignments as well. So imagine they have clicked, you've sent this email on behalf of the salespeople. You could also go ahead and assign the lead here. So you could say, go ahead and assign the lead, and then you could add a task as part of that salesperson's workflow, so they know the context of following up this customer as well. So I'll go and pick myself as the lead assignment, or you could pick a group of salespeople to assign it to. You can also go about adding a task here. So you could say, Mike is interested. And of course, Mike is not going to be helpful, so we better use our personalization variable and put first name is interested in subscribing to wine as an example. So you could put an in-context task in as well. And so it's highly configurable. These shapes up here we call conditions, and the reason we call them that is because they have these outcomes and they can detect what happened to a message that you sent. So has it been sent? Has it not been clicked? And you can see that's how we built this outcome here. We said has not clicked, and we just dragged it in here. So these journeys can easily be modified as well. So that's it. That's our nurture your contacts with 4 emails journey. We've added some assignments with the leads there to help our sales team. We've also added the form and the SMS in here. So let's go ahead and publish it. In fact, before I do that, one last thing. So in Autopilot, there's this blue button called Request Review. So if you're unsure about a journey that you build and you need help, you can click Get Started. It's free, and then you can go ahead and fill in what your goals are for the journey. Hit Request Review, and our team will actually help you, configure the journey, understand how it works, and give you some tips and tricks about how to improve it as well. So we hit publish, the journey will go off and publish all of those emails and start to track this form here as well. So we'll just go ahead and refresh it so it knows, and then we'll jump back into our dashboard here. And we can see obviously that activity come through because we're now tracking that page. So I'll go ahead and register for a bit of wine time here, and let's see how we go, and I'll show you how this all plays out. So put in my phone number as well. And then I'll say, what do I love about wine? Drinking it. And away it goes. So it's submitted there. And so we're about to see the activity light up here, and we can see in context everything that's happening as it's happening here. So you can see Michael Sharkey submitted the wine time subscribe form, and you can see that I said what they love about wine. It's drinking it. You can also see here I was sent the SMS, so Michael was sent the SMS. Michael, thanks for subscribing. So this gives you a really good look at everything that's happening as it's happening to those people in your database, and you can click into them as well, and it builds out an entire profile. And we actually add some enrichment here. So we add things like the profile photos so you can start to see and visualize your database. We add social media links. So if they're on Twitter or Facebook or LinkedIn, we add those in as well for you. And we add a bit of extra data where we can, thanks to a partnership we have with Full Contact. You can also see some custom fields in here and all sorts of information like email permissions, segments I belong to, and all of my previous activity. And this, of course, can be shared with your sales team and used to start in-context conversations as well. So let me head back in here and show you one other aspect of this. So you can, if you want to know where the mass or volume of contacts are up to in the journey, you can actually see here where they're up to. So the first step is entered, and the second step is basically holding there or waiting.
So Mike, maybe how about we paste the URL of this page into the GoToMeeting? We can actually see people like myself go in there and fill out the form.
Yeah, for sure. So this is always an interesting little exercise. So I'll go ahead and just paste that form URL into the chat for everyone in the audience. So you can see that URL in there and go to it, and then kick off, hit the subscribe button and kind of play it out. So if we go back into our dashboard here, we'll be able to see those. So we see the people are now doing it on the webinar, and they're coming through as anonymous visitors, which is expected. So we have like 215, 216, 217, 218 here. So this is a lot of you are interacting, which is really cool. So if you go ahead and actually fill in that form, we will see here in real time as you do that, the form submissions coming through. You'll get that SMS, and you'll actually be put through this wine nurture as well in my test account here.
And while you're doing that, I think this is a really cool basic getting started nurture that we created as a result of a lot of requests, frankly, starting off with the wine company, which we thought was a great way to make this much more accessible. And this 4 email follow-up with 10-day gaps has already proven to be really effective for that particular company, simply because of the fact it makes it easy for anybody who fills out a form or engages with that company now gets a series of follow-ons. In their case, they are actually recommending sommeliers. They're recommending different flavors of wine, pairings with food, and so on. And they've already seen in a pretty short period of time, they say over 150% increase in online sales they've had since just simply putting in place a basic nurture follow-up, which I thought is really exciting in terms of the ROI that we're seeing. And again, this is a 4-step email where if you click into any one of those, it sends a follow-up, which is from a person. And that's obviously a shorter sales cycle, more of the e-commerce type of model than the longer term lead nurturing life cycle we were showing earlier.
Oh, I love this. Someone said what they love about wine, stockpiling the hell out of it so I can drink it in large quantities, of course. So as you can see, like this is just lighted up activity. It's of course we kind of cheated here because we made you do this, but you can see how effective it can be. What they love about wine, that there is a lot of it. That's great as well. So you can see here as you guys in the audience are filling this in, like you can see how it can really reignite your database or get people really involved. And it kind of, the activity here speaks for itself. It can get you, it can get people really engaged with your content and reading it and interacting with your company. And it's just this continuous flow of activity that you'll see.
And after a newsletter, for example, obviously this activity feed gets pretty flushed pretty quickly, but it is fun to see information flow through. It gets really interesting if you use this, for example, for an upcoming event. We did a launch party for Autopilot back in April, and we actually sent emails and introductions and invites as well as boarding passes to many of our friends, colleagues, and people we've worked with over the time, as well as customers. And seeing the feedback come through from people you care about a lot about what their impressions are, it's just really great insight you can get and sort of store in one central place.
So just a few other things, and then I'll quickly wrap this up. So we've got a few more things to cover. If you are using Autopilot and need help anytime, we do have live chat, so you can click this button here and talk to some experts, and they'll help you do anything that you need to do as you set it up. This contact manager allows you to do some really cool things. You can, of course, just sort your contacts into basic lists, but you can also build these things we call smart segments, which is a way of looking at those customers. So you could, once you start populating fields, you could be like, I want to look at all the people and what they responded to in that form question about wine, and I want to search for people who like red wine. And so you could create a smart segment of people who are interested in reds as opposed to whites is a good example of that. And then, of course, folders, so you can organize different lists and segments into folders. And then if you have Salesforce here, you can see I've got it connected as an example. So I've got Salesforce leads, Salesforce contacts, and that gives you a direct view and a direct sync between Salesforce as well. So that's it. Let's move on and jump back into not my obsession with space, but the keynote.
Excellent. Well, we've got 10 minutes left here, and so we're going to wrap this up. And if you have any questions, feel free to shoot them through. I thought it'd be interesting to show you a little bit of a sneak peek of under the hood of what we do here internally. And we're going to share your results on that lead nurturing journey, the lifecycle nurture journey that we showed you a few minutes ago, the 3-tier one that we do here at Autopilot. And just now that you've seen how we build this out in practice, what we do is we send emails every 10 days. And there's 9 emails in a track. So essentially we put people through a quarter, and then we put them into another list that kicks off another quarter. So we think about people as having gone through generations of nurturing. And here's some results from the last 3 months, April, May, and June. So first of all, you can see that about 8.5% of all of our trials and leads during the last 3 months have actually come from nurtured leads that have been through our program. So that is substantial. And I can tell you that if we didn't do this, then those numbers would be much, much lower, and definitely we'd have no visibility of those. Some really interesting data here is just looking at the open rate, click rate, and unsubscribe rate. We didn't show you that, but that's something you can easily pull from within Autopilot as well through our integration with Good Data, which summarizes up a lot of your key email deliverability, send, time, content, URL type of information. But that early stage, that top of funnel or early stage buyer where we're doing pure best practices and thought leadership, about 12% are opening those, and about a little under 1% are clicking, and about 0.4% unsubscribing. But obviously there's the vast majority of people are in the early stage. Once they do accelerate, so they engage any of our content, we kick them into a mid stage, so we accelerate them up, and it takes you down a level. And then suddenly you're seeing about a 48% open rate there. So almost half of the people who receive those emails open, and then about 7% are clicking. And at that point, unsubscribe rates are going way down because people, that's down by 100% because of the fact that people don't, they're now clearly engaged and interested in more of the type of best thought leadership and best practices we're offering them. And then again, a subset of the mid stage is they continue to engage, go into late stage where again, open rates are high as well. Click rates are extremely high because they've now basically put their hand up and said, yep, we've learned a lot, we're interested, and now we're ready to either sign up for a trial, which is primarily what we're doing, or request a demo with us. And you can see as well the unsubscribe rates at that point are really low. So I always think it's interesting when you see in data that tells a very clear story. You can see as they get from early stage to late stage, then their engagement, certainly through clicks, goes up dramatically and in a very regular sort of a way. And those are numbers we've seen. We are regularly working with our customers and have more and more interest in developing sort of benchmark results. And if anybody, either today or otherwise, is interested in sharing some of their information, we'd love to in the future do a blog, a case study, webinars with you, particularly if you're willing to share some of your results. We would like to, as we continue to grow out our install base here, develop more and more solid benchmarking data around how other companies do. From my past experience, these numbers here are pretty good, and I think it does reflect the amount of testing we've done to try and make both content be on point and effective and interesting and having the right triggers and have the right time points. In terms of, again, a couple little best practices here, we use a combination of branded or HTML templated content as well as written content. We use written personal content that comes from a customer success manager or from a salesperson when we're basically mimicking a direct outreach and automating a manual task. And we do that at certain points in time that make sense. Like if they're inactive after a certain period of time, we'll reach out with a personal one, offer a call. And of course, this is coming from, in our case, James's email, and the response rates tend to be much higher when you do some best practices here, are the right questions, keeping it short, making it low pressure, being personal with an image of the person, giving a clear opt-out with the unsubscribe, and having a send from a real email address. Whereas the branded content is really a message from your company welcoming you to a new service or providing thought leadership content, not coming from a person, but does represent what the customer is trying to achieve. So some quick pro tips from today. One is repurpose your content and write with a person in mind. So we really think about three types of email readers. The skimmer, so those are people who only skim headlines, whether that's your email or your blog content. The sponge that reads every word of your email, and the socialite who loves to click links and share content on Twitter or Facebook. So we say that we write for the sponge, we structure for the skimmer, and we decorate for the socialite, all of our content. Your subject line, 6 to 10 words for highest open rates. We've got more content coming out soon on our upcoming e-learning platform, as well as on our blogs that dive into some really interesting insights. What are the best words to use in subject lines for open rates? Personalize your content to deliver much higher transaction rates. This is one of the ways that is some of the quickest wins you can get once you get more into this. But Mike showed a few minutes ago the ability to inject dynamic content. You can also actually target emails based on whether or not someone has engaged your content or done certain things in your product as you start to capture the level of activity. Be consistent, obviously. We've found that 10 days is a good spacing. We've seen people doing everything from daily nurturing to months apart. The data shows that actually weekly gives you even more. People who are in touch weekly are generating even more leads, but obviously you want to manage expectations with customers and not be too in their face. You want to create awareness and a good impression of your brand, as well as effectiveness of generating leads from nurturing. Send from a real person and include a headshot for an added human touch. So wrapping this up today, we're just going to leave you with 3 takeaways. 1, grow your marketing database by centralizing and organizing your contacts in one place, automatically tracking the activities, what they're doing across each of your online properties, as well as wherever you can add tracking scripts to get that information. And in doing so, it allows you a way to be much more personal in how you engage. And 3rd is capture leads using your content as a gating mechanism, so that if someone wants to download a white paper or read a certain piece of content, they need to add their information. 2nd is get a quick win. So once you get started, before going into a longer term nurturing approach, We recommend starting off with a quick win, a newsletter, an offer, a survey that gives you a sense really quickly of where the most interested, engaged customers are within your lead database. And once you get that experience with a really positive experience, both with high responses and hopefully driving leads and revenue for your company, then it creates both the motivation and the set of learnings to go into sort of a midterm, like a lead nurturing program. The third is attract customers and new sales ready leads by nurturing buyers with high converting content and relevant calls to action that are responsive to how they're engaging your content. So from that, we're going to open for any questions we might have here. We're coming up to the hour here.
Yeah, so just while we're waiting to surface those, if you do want to get in touch after the webinar, we'll make a recording of this available. We'll also share the slide deck. You'll find that on our blog, blog.autopilothq.com. We'll also, of course, send you a follow-up. If you do want to reach out to any of us, our emails, Twitter accounts, and various other things are up on the screen right now, and we're happy to personally reply if you have any questions or want to give us feedback from today.
Mike, I have a question for you while we're waiting for questions.
Oh, great. I thought I'd skip all the questions today.
What is the most interesting lead nurturing journey that you've seen so far, given you've built this platform and now you're seeing all sorts of stuff come out of it that people are doing, all different use cases and approaches? Like, what have you seen that's just blown you away?
Yeah, I think two stand out, and they're more recent ones, but there's been obviously hundreds now, so it's hard to remember them all. But the one that I really like is a customer who has built out lead nurturing and accumulates data on customers as they go through with emails. So they'll ask them questions. And I think that, from what I saw at least, it does yield a higher response rate. So it'll be like, do you like this or this? And you'll click one or the other, and then it'll take you to some information about it. And then they use what's called like a UTM link to log in Autopilot the sort of response or interest against a field, against that context. They're actually adding to the customer profile all of this extra information without making them really feel like they're filling in forms or doing anything. They're just clicking on things in an email. That was one really cool example I saw of enhancing lead nurturing. And the other one I saw was, and I can talk about this a bit more, was a gym who was nurturing you with like fitness and motivation based on like actually, whether you swiped into a gym or not, which I thought was just incredible because I have 2 gym memberships right now. I rarely go. And if I was getting, some motivational emails and maybe things in the mail, I definitely, it would make me feel guilty and maybe I would go. And then the third, you've opened a can of worms here. Is one I actually saw this morning, which was really cool. It was where they had a ton of subscribers, like so many that it's mind-blowing. And they were trying to turn these people into premium subscribers. And the way they were doing it wasn't very salesy at all. It was just talking through customer case studies and customer examples and also connecting you with the community. And I just thought it was amazing, just the sheer way the content was. It was super well thought out, super educational, really well timed. And it's often the most simplest examples that I think do the best, where people have really thought through that customer journey and the experience, if they are a customer, they'd like to have when interacting with a business or brand.
Excellent. All right. Well, let's leave it at that.
I think we're out of time. It's bad. They said I wouldn't play music, but I did. Thanks for attending today. We'll catch you on the next one. Please reach out if we can help you in any way. Our details are up on the screen now.
Thank you, everybody.